We're back. You're listening to the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on International Business Growth Radio. I'm Jason Wally Waldron, your host for this season, where we're talking about creating lasting value even in a challenging economy. And I am joined here today by Sean Hutchinson. Sean is the founder of Ready for Next Advisory Group, and you can find out more about what he's about and what his entire team is about at readyfornextadvisorygroup.com. But first, before we do that, we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to our heart and hopefully yours, and that is the inner game of exiting your business. And Sean, welcome back. I understand there is a lot of brain chemistry going on for the possibly stressed out and anxious business owner who's looking to exit their business.
It's absolutely that you're right. The brain is playing a huge part. You addressed part of it earlier, that in terms of the anxiety and panic when you can shift from right brain to left brain. Remember, business owners are often very technical people. They spend a lot of time left brain, getting into that more expansive creative space. And the right brain is important, moving away from the limbic sort of fight or flight. The brain that's all brain. That's all chemistry. Our brains literally float in chemicals, right? So you have to remember, you're dealing with chemistry, you're dealing with electrical impulses. It's kind of a wild and woolly place inside the brain. But the fact is, we love to be excited. We love to be intrigued and challenged. And we hate to be bored. When we're bored by a conversation, when we're bored by a process, our brain literally just starts to do other stuff. It loses attention, and so do we. So, and when we're excited, dopamine and serotonin start to course through our brain and body. And dopamine is literally the chemical in the body that gets our muscles to move. It says, hey, there's something interesting over here, and you need to pay attention to it. So our brain very quickly, in microseconds, moves through this process of, am I seeing something interesting? Do I want to pay attention to it? Should I be excited about it? If I'm excited about it, what actions do I need to take in order to make this even more exciting for myself? This shows up in a lot of ways in the value acceleration and exit process, but it also helps us manage anxiety.
So Sean, from the perspective of a business owner, a lot of times, especially if we're going from founder to potentially CEO, potentially chairman, potentially someone who's harvested the value of this business, go with me on this for a second. You and I are inviting them to really step out of their comfort zone and do things that they are not necessarily to take actions, to your point, right? To go through the value acceleration methodology, to make choices, possibly very impactful, hard choices in a very rapid succession. And so to that end, going back to brain chemistry, you have the limbic brain, you have sort of the midbrain, which is our social brain, and then you have the higher functioning left and right brains and, areas of the brain there. The frontal lobes. But an entrepreneur and a founder, in my experience, and this may be different than yours, is essentially an adrenaline junkie who decided at some point to have the entrepreneurial seizure and apply that to business. Am I doing okay so far?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
okay.
There's an aspect of it. Yeah.
So my question around that is, how do you take that person and essentially separate the adrenaline junkie part from the person who still needs to take measured action to the person who needs to kind of take that energy away for the business so they can decentralize themselves?
Yeah, it's interesting. Good question. So first of all, adrenaline is not what we want. Adrenaline is on the damaging, stress causing side of the chemistry in the brain, right? We need to find another way. If you're an adrenaline junkie, you're probably a stress junkie. You like the cortisol, coming. You think that's good for you because some people they'll say they operate really well under stress.
Right.
The brain doesn't. The body doesn't. It's actually damaging. So you want the right kind of chemicals coursing through your body. Dopamine and serotonin are two chemicals that work very well with one another, but they also travel something called the mesolimbic pathway, which goes into a part of the brain that helps us make good decisions. So if not only do we go into an action mode, we actually get better and clearer at making hard decisions during that period. So we don't want an owner to say, I just went from a super excited, on fire point of view, and that feeling in my body. We want them to maintain that, but we want them to we want them to get there a different way. And how do we get there? We ask good questions. right?
Okay.
So human
Yep.
inquiry plays a part in this. You ask good questions that kind of turn the switch for an owner. If the owner is asking good questions themselves, both of their people and themselves, right? That process of just having good conversations is one of the most pleasurable aspects of life. Think about what you remember from a good conversation. You can remember good conversations that you had in college, and where you were, and who you were talking to, and how life-changing it might have been, right? You don't remember the boring stuff. You jettisoned that years ago. Your brain doesn't want to remember that stuff. It only wants to hold on to the things that were life-changing, exciting, that were engaging. And I think engagement is a big piece of the process. So if an owner disengages from the process for whatever reason, you in the value acceleration as an advisor, right, as a process manager in a sense, have to re-engage that. And the way that you re-engage them is to make sure that they're challenged and not bored.
So you want a business owner to be coming from a dopamine and serotonin place.
That's correct.
So I understand challenging someone. I understand inviting them into this next phase. I understand those types of positive challenges that you can take with someone once you've built that trust relationship. But just very scientifically, like what changes, why dopamine and serotonin? How does that person change? How does their leadership change? How does it then flow to the business? Maybe take us through.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, first of all, they start paying attention to what's going on in their body and mind at the same time. How do they feel in the moment, right? So again, if you take that 65 to 75-year-old entrepreneur, right, a little bit older, they don't pay a whole lot of attention to what's going on in their body and mind at the time. They're do. It might be damaging, but they feel like if they're checking the list, then they're happening, and that's good. But it could be causing that stress reaction at the same time. Not good, affecting their heart, affecting their mental health.
Oh, wow.
So one of the things that fires dopamine, right, and serotonin is surprise. Something happened in this process that we didn't expect. And when it happened, our brains wake up, and these good things start to happen because we're seeing something. When we see something that we didn't expect, we got to pay attention to it, good, bad, or otherwise, right?
Okay. Yep.
But when they have gone through the process, they have the tools, they have better tools, they have better knowledge, and they can engage with those things in a really, really productive way. That's agility. I think that shows up in agility. So not locking into, well, it worked in the past, so we're just going to keep doing that. No matter what's going on around us, that we are just, like blinders on, head down, we're going to keep doing it. I think it shows up in, we're going to constantly gather information, data, stimulation from the environment around us. We're going to interact with people, have good discussions, collaboratively solve problems. That's a culture, right? Then we're also going to be able to pivot, move fast, be very, very creative in the way that we respond to things or take advantage of opportunities. That's how it shows up.
So do you ever have situations where you literally need to force these owners to take a vacation or, start, you know what I mean? Start scheduling golf days on Wednesdays or some version of those types of things?
Absolutely. I think owner dependency, as you know, the dependency on the owner to run the business successfully is a huge value discount, much deeper than most owners think. It's probably 30 to 40% of the market value from a valuation standpoint.
And put differently, what you're speaking to is the more involved you are and more necessary you are for your business, the less money you're going to get for it when it's time to exit, right?
Absolutely. That's the way it works, right? So big value killer. So for the owner, again, think about spanning, right? What we were talking about earlier, spanning authority, spanning fealty. Those are all indications, if those are happening well, that the owner is beginning to step back and the business is less dependent on them. There's an emotion to that. They've done it. We totally respect the fact that they've been doing this for 35 or 40 or 45 years. They built a great business.
Yeah.
But here's my take. There is no legitimate reason that I can see that a 40-year-old business would still be dependent in any way on the owner. There's no legitimate reason for it. So if you take it from that point of view, there's an identity issue. So you're trying to help the owner sort of say, if I'm not going to be an owner, it's not about doing, it's about being. If I'm not going to be an owner, an entrepreneur anymore, I'm still an owner, but I'm not really entrepreneurial in the sense that I'm there every day, that I'm making certain executive decisions, so on and so forth. If I'm not going to be that person, who am I going to be?
Right.
What am I going to be doing in my time off? So yeah, I'd love to see them take a vacation.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see them go play more golf or whatever it is that excites them and makes them feel rested and restored. But I also want them to be grappling with this question early of, okay, if I'm not doing this, then my B has been affected. So what's significant, meaningful, purposeful, intentional to me as a human that I can graduate to based on my previous experiences?
Right.
So I'm going to grow. I'm going to see this as a growth opportunity. I'm not going to see it as a reset. I actually, again, I see it as a yes and. Yes. I have spent a life doing great things. I am respected for it. I should be. I've built something good for myself, for my family, for my employees, for my community. But how am I going to build on that?
I love that this is, and we are, again, just scratching the surface of the body of work that you're bringing to bear. But I love that you're bringing that conversation forth very early in the process, because I have seen situations that are just tragic because you are so caught up in this way of being, right? I am this person in this business and I don't know myself outside of that. And if somebody can't grapple with that and be shepherded into a new way of being, to your point, bad things happen. And
I've seen it result in substance abuse. I've seen families fall apart just because someone decided that they weren't going to do the work necessary for them to make that transition. And there is work involved. Right, there is intentionality involved in it, and
so Sean, absolutely. So Sean, as we kind of wrap up here today, are there any parting thoughts or resources you'd like to make available to our listeners?
We have a lot of resources available on a related company called Ready for Next Academy. So a lot of education there. Here's what I would say: as an owner, become more educated, become more aware. And that's going to help you be successful in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Sean. You've been listening to the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on International Business Growth Radio Network.